Tony Blair and the cynical math of mass migration. So Tony Blair's kind of disappeared from politics in some ways. Remember, Tony was a good friend of the Bush family. Tony was a solid conservative. Tony was a solid friend of America. And then Tony Blair began to kind of evolve, which happens sometimes. Conservatives evolve. And he evolved into someone who speaks some quiet truths about how he sees Britain's future, which is the way many people in the United States see America's future. It's different from what Donald Trump sees. President Trump was talking about the government shutdown, and the government shutdown that's really been pushed by Democrats. I don't care about the government shutdown because I don't get any money from the government, and I know there's people whose paychecks depend on that, and it's very cold for me to say I don't care. I also don't care because they're going to keep doing this, and if we care about it, it will continue to be effective. Therefore, I choose to not care. I choose to not be invested in the government staying open. I choose to take this away as an emotional tool. I don't care. Keep it shut. I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to be emotionally connected to it. I suggest you do the same thing, and then this tool will stop working. So President Trump talked about what the Democrats seem to want out of the shutdown.
Well, we want to have great health care, so we'll do whatever we can do to have great health care. But the Democrats want to destroy all health care because they want to give $1.5 trillion of this money, and they want additional money to go to people that came into our country illegally. Many of them are from prisons and mental institutions, and we're not going to destroy our health care for the Democrats.
And this is very true. The Democrats want to make sure that illegal immigrants continue to get free health care because it's one of the things that keep illegal immigrants here. Because as people are thinking of self-deporting, because there are the Custom Border Patrol efforts, there are the ICE agents who are going and getting illegal immigrants and sending them out of the country, sending them to their home countries. There are people doing some calculus. Maybe we should self-deport, but we get free health care here. That's why they're so committed to this. The cynical math is well known at this point. It's about redistributing the electoral college votes. It's about shifting the country to permanent control. That's well known, but it's far more cynical than that. Then the Bible describes not a one nation, a one world government. It describes one leader. The Antichrist becomes the boss of the world, and there's one currency. And without that currency, you can't buy or sell. You can't trade. It's going to be very difficult to live under those circumstances, and people are going to have to choose their lives, that is their flesh and blood, or their spiritual lives, which is eternity. That's going to be a horrible choice for people who live during that time. And the Bible says it will happen, meaning it already has. Because when God says a thing is going to come to pass. Tony Blair has a vision. It's a vision that lines right up with what the Bible says will happen, which is one Antichrist will run the world. There will be one common currency. I don't think Tony Blair gets this. Because Satan masquerades as an angel of light, I think Tony Blair, like a lot of globalists, think we could just solve all wars. So the cynical math is, hey, distribute enough people around the world that the whole world is alike, that there's no cultural differences. Therefore, everybody will just go along with the plan. And Tony Blair spoke very openly about this, as you're about to see. We have cultural differences. We value life in America in ways that other countries don't. It's one of our unique values. Now, you could say Western democracies have sort of similar values this way, but that's not really true. If you look at what's going on in Canada with the mass unaliving of people with the help of physicians, that's not an American value. I don't know that it's a Canadian value. It's a globalist value. We also in this country value the lives of children. Not the case in some other countries. In China, for instance, there's the one-child policy. Then there's also the taking advantage of political prisoners, like the Uyghurs, to test products on. They do that in some of the prison camps over there. So Allen soaps compared to the soap you're using now. The soap you use now in your home may well be tested upon Uyghurs. It may well come out of China with a whole bunch of chemicals in it. Some they disclose to you, some they don't. Because there's a bunch of chemicals used in the cleaning process and the manufacturing process. Why would China care to tell us? On the other hand, there's Allen soaps, all natural, made right here in the United States, not by a big factory. It's made by a family. They do it together. They've done it for 3 generations, going on 4 generations. And this soap has an added value. It doesn't just clean your skin in this all-healthy way. It employs people that the rest of the world would say they're worthless. Just put them in an institution. That's the mission of Allen's. Go to allensoaps.com/Todd to join that mission. allensoaps.com/Todd to get 10% off all the products there at allensoaps.com/Todd. So this is Tony Blair, and what he's describing has in the subtext of it this cynical math of mass migration. It's one world, one view, one population, therefore easy to have one government.
And I think in a way, for a country like Britain, whose future has got to be as a nation of global citizens, not just British citizens, then I think interfaith in this context is incredibly important, because you cannot be a global citizen and be religiously illiterate.
That's a fascinating thing, to be religiously illiterate, and you cannot be a global citizen. Well, in fact, Jesus Christ is the Lord of all. He is the King of all. But when you're talking about Britain losing its national identity and everyone in Britain being a global citizen, you are helping Satan with a plan. Now, it's God's plan. God knows how it's going to lay out. He's told us it's coming. But Satan's last big shot is that one world rule with that one currency that everybody has to use to be able to buy or sell. I think politicians like Tony Blair want to seem sophisticated, so they say things like this. They want to appear compassionate, so they say things like this. But there is nothing compassionate about stealing a nation's identity, and there's nothing compassionate about helping to lay the groundwork for first the lawless one and then the Antichrist, who wants this system. So the cynical numbers here, the cynical math, is think about a homogeneous world where there can be no differences because of mass migration. That's part of the end game here. It's not, quote, just the shifting of the Electoral College. It's the complete shifting of culture to welcome something like all one world government. After all, we're all one world. After all, there's no different voting blocks.